Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're plunging into, well, the darker side of things, cybersecurity, but specifically how attackers actually, do what they do.
Right. And our source material is maybe a little different this time. We're looking at practice questions for a specific certification, the CCFR 201b exam.
Exactly. But don't let the exam questions part fool you. They're really signposts pointing us towards some core ideas in cybersecurity.
Definitely. They map pretty directly onto something called the MITE, ATT, and CK framework,
Right.
which for anyone unfamiliar is essentially this huge knowledge base, a catalog, really.
Like a map.
Yeah, exactly. A map of how cyber adversaries operate, tactics, techniques, procedures, all based on observing real-world attacks. It's pretty foundational stuff.
So our mission today is to take these questions, these little snippets, and pull out the key insights about the attacker's playbook. What are the steps? What tools or methods do they use? All viewed through this MITE, ATT, and CK lens.
And understanding this, well, it's like learning a language, the language of cyber threats. It's vital if you're defending systems, or even if you just want to understand the digital risks out there.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, let's dive in. Let's unpack this source material.
Where should we start? There are quite a few concepts touched upon in these questions.
Well, one that really caught my eye asked about the main point of the impact tactic. Impact. Sounds final.
It often is. In the MITRE framework, impact covers the adversary's goal to actually disrupt, degrade, or destroy systems or data. It's about affecting availability or integrity.
Okay, so this is where the real damage happens. The source mentioned things like crashing systems, wiping data.
Exactly. Or ransomware, which is obviously huge. Encrypting files and demanding payment. It's the part of the attack that's often most visible to the victim.
Right, so attackers might sneak around for ages.
Yes. Reconnaissance, getting access, moving laterally, collecting data, all that can happen quietly. But impact, that's often the loud bang at the end, achieving their objective, whether it's, financial gain, destruction, or just disruption.
Okay, makes sense. Let's maybe rewind a bit from the bang. Another question zeroed in on credential access, getting logins, passwords.
Ah, yes. Credential access. Absolutely crucial for attackers.
Yeah.
It's all about stealing account names and passwords.
And the specific technique highlighted in the material was keylogging.
That's one classic example, yeah. Installing software that just records every single keystroke.
So you type your password.
And they capture it. Simple as that, conceptually at least. And credentials, well, they're gold, aren't they?
Because they let the attacker just walk in the front door.
Pretty much. They bypass a lot of defenses because the system thinks they're a legitimate user. It's stealthy.
Right. Now, before they can even use those credentials or cause that impact, they need to actually run their malicious code. The source mentioned execution.
Execution is fundamental. It's the tactic where the adversary gets the compromised system to run their commands or code.
So launching malware, running scripts, maybe using built-in tools for bad purposes. This is them doing things.
Precisely. It's moving from just being on the system to actively operating on it. Executing their tools, their commands. It's where their plan starts to unfold on your machine.
And that can't happen unless they get in somehow in the first place. The source pointed to things like phishing.
Exploit kits, too. Those fall under initial access.
Initial access, so the very first step, gaining that foothold.
Exactly. How do they breach the perimeter? Phishing is a huge one. Tricking users. That's social engineering.
Like clicking a bad link in an email.
Or opening a malicious attachment.
Okay.
And exploit kits, they target vulnerabilities in your software, maybe your browser or plugins, often without you even needing to click anything specific.
So defending that entry point is key then.
Absolutely critical. If you block initial access, the rest of the attack chain might just fall apart. Lock the doors,
Okay, so they get in, but they don't want to get kicked out if the system reboots or something. The questions define persistence.
Persistence. Yeah, that's about maintaining access over time, surviving restarts, credential changes, anything that might disrupt their connection.
They want to make sure they can always get back in.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the source mentioned techniques like adding backdoors.
Or setting up programs to run automatically at startup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Creating hidden ways back in or ensuring their malware relaunches itself. It's like leaving a window unlocked or maybe rigging it to pop open again later. They need that reliable access.
So they're in, they're persistent, but they also want to stay hidden. One technique mentioned was obfuscated files or information.
Ah, yeah. That falls squarely under the defense evasion tactic.
Defense evasion. Kind of self-explanatory, I guess. Hiding from security tools.
That's the core idea. Making their malicious code or activities hard to detect, hard to analyze. Obfuscation means scrambling the code so it doesn't look like known malware.
So it just flies under the radar.
Or makes it much harder for security software and analysts to figure out what it's doing. They encrypt things, rename tools, use legitimate processes in weird ways. Lots of tricks.
Okay, so they're in, persistent, and trying to hide. But the first machine they land on might not be the main prize, right? The source talked about moving within a network.
That's lateral movement. Once they compromise one system, they often want to pivot or move sideways to other systems within the same network.
Why? Looking for something specific?
Usually, yes. They're exploring, trying to find more valuable targets, maybe domain controllers, file servers with sensitive data, databases.
The crown jewels.
Right. The initial foothold might be on a less critical machine, like a standard user's workstation. Lateral movement is how they navigate internally to reach those higher value assets. It's like exploring inside the castle walls once you're over the first one.
And once they find those crown jewels, that sensitive data, they often want to steal it. Which brings us to exfiltration. The source had a specific technique. Exfiltration over command and control channel.
Yeah, exfiltration is the tactic of stealing data, getting it out of the network.
And doing it over the C2 channel. What's C2?
Command and control. It's the communication channel the attacker uses to manage the compromised system, send commands, receive output.
Ah, okay. So they sneak the stolen data out through that same channel.
Exactly. The source called it sneaky, which is, well, accurate. Instead of creating a new, potentially suspicious connection just to upload data, they blend it with their existing C2 traffic.
Making it harder to spot the data theft specifically.
Much harder for network monitoring that's looking for unusual outbound flows. It's hiding in plain sight.
I love her. The source also touched on getting more power on a system. Privilege escalation. It mentioned a Windows technique.
Right. Privilege escalation.
Yeah.
Gaining higher level permissions than they initially had. The technique mentioned was likely token impersonation or token theft.
And that basically means stealing another user's identity temporarily, like grabbing their access token.
Precisely. Windows uses tokens to manage permissions. If an attacker can steal the token of, say, an administrator account,
They suddenly become an administrator, at least as far as the system is concerned.
effectively, yes. It lets them do things their initial low-privilege access wouldn't allow: installing software, changing system settings, accessing restricted files. It's a massive step up in control.
Makes sense why that's a whole tactic. Finally, before they exfiltrate data, they probably need to gather it up first. The source mentioned collection.
Yes, collection. This covers techniques adversaries use to gather information of interest that's stored on the systems they've compromised.
So, finding the files they want. The source listed things like data staged or data from local system.
Right. Data from local system is just that grabbing files, documents, emails, whatever, from the machine. Data staged often means they collect data from various places and then bundle it up, maybe compress or encrypt it, in a temporary location.
Getting it ready for exfiltration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Find it, gather it, package it up. It makes the actual stealing part, the exfiltration, more efficient.
Well, that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
We look forward to the next deep dive.